first flight of the orbiter Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
Hey, welcome to the Health or High Water podcast. What's happening, guys? Thanks so much for joining us once again on this journey. Episode what, Trip? We on 100 yet? Somewhere around there?
We are on, this actually might be 100.
All
This
right.
might be the 100th episode.
All right, let's do it backwards today. I'm feeling like it's Friday. It's a great day. We have a fantastic guest here in the house. Let's go backwards today. Trip, why don't you take over? I want you to, because you're the football extraordinaire and so excited for this. I know we were talking about this earlier. I just want to warn you, Trip is the biggest football nerd ever here, so if he gets a little in the weeds.
Well, we're just going to hope that he can pronounce my last name correctly, and then we'll see. We'll go from there.
Let's take it from there. Go ahead.
Well, hey, guys. Welcome to Health or High Water podcast. Sorry, just got out of a boxing class that was exciting and had a lot of good things happen there, but really excited about this podcast. Phil McGeoghan, did I get right?
You got, I would say, a 3 out of 10. Mick, like, because I'm very
Mick.
Irish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and half Jamaican. So McGeoghan.
McGeoghan.
Yeah, so Geoghan is phonetically Gagan if you were in
McGeoghan.
Ireland. So Mick.
Irish.
Irish and Jamaican.
And Jamaican.
Yeah,
do you
good
like Irish music? Are you? Do you?
I do.
On the Irish side.
Yeah.
And Jamaican too. That's like.
I love both. I love
if you
both
combine
cultures.
musically, if you combine Irish and Jamaican music, you probably have the best music of all time.
If you like the Cranberries and Bob Marley, yeah.
But yeah, man, you're a super accomplished football all around. I've been really excited about this for a while since we connected. You have a really interesting career all the way from college, the UFL. You played in the Ring of Honor, your alma mater. Just give the viewers a little backstory about you, where you're from, and what you're doing right now.
Oh, my name is Phil McGeoghan. I'm originally from Western Massachusetts, a town called Agawam. I went to Boston University. They dropped football. I transferred to Maine. In Orono, played for Jack Cosgrove, a wonderful man. I ended up working for Jack as well after I finished a 4-year playing career. So I got into coaching. I went from Maine to Naval Academy to USF to the Dolphins to ECU to the Bills to the Chargers to CU to the UFL to taking my 4-year-old to preschool and coaching her basketball team this fall while working on my MBA. That
is a crazy. That happens a lot, right? Just players going all over the place, different teams, those kind of things. That's got to be a little bit hard too. Is that constant, change of environment?
Yeah, I think. It can be difficult. I know the real estate agents love it. It's not always great for camaraderie in the community and having roots laid down. But honestly, if you get cut 3 times in your first 6 weeks of your rookie year, that's an exposure to these different teams, some adversity you have to overcome. Mm-hmm. You have to develop some resiliency. You learn all these playbooks, and then you finally kind of get a chance to be somewhere. For a couple of years, and you're off to the next place. So it just basically teaches you, how to make friends quickly. Don't get too attached to the position. Never be comfortable in your current situation. Always be, striving for the best, but always be anticipating that you might have to do this at another place. So that's just the life that we've chose, as coaches and as players.
What position were you originally, or what did you think you wanted to play? Because you said you were open. Don't be pigeonholed into one position. What position did you play?
I played receiver, and I played special teams predominantly. But yeah, I also would more help on the look team and at safety. So whatever you could do, there was no job that was too small. It was either you're the best in the world and are on an NFL roster, or you're on your mother's couch as a 21-year-old, rookie. So, it's just do whatever you need to do to stay another day, stay another week, to stay another year. It goes like that.
What is that process? I mean, obviously it's forming great relationships with coaches and letting them know, hey, I'm here to do what the team needs.
Sure.
There's a lot of that going on, but I'm guessing, like you said, a ton of uncertainty. being on. I'm thinking early back when you first. What was the first team you played for?
The Jets out of college.
Okay.
I was there for training camp, and then went to the Raiders week 1 on the practice squad. Then ended up here in Denver, like right around week 7 on the active roster. So that was quite a whirlwind time because 9/11 happened that in week 2. So there was just a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. So at any moment, I mean, did you feel when you were back then and you were in training camp, was there a part of you that like any week you could get cut? Is that?
Yeah, always.
Wow.
So I got a $1,000 signing bonus from the Jets, which means that they're going to cut you before they cut the guy who has a $15,000 signing bonus. That's a free agent as well. So I remember Herm Edwards was a coach, and at this time they had rookie mini camps together with the vets, right? So, you see all the guys. There's Aaron Glenn over there, and there's Mo Lewis, and and Marvin Jones and Wayne Corbett, and you're just like, and Vinny Testaverde. So you're like,
I remember that team. Yeah.
I wish I could have just got in there with the rest of the rookies, but I remember, there's a script. Paul Hackett was the offensive coordinator. It was 20 plays in the first Pascal, and the receiver coach was rotating us in every 2 plays. There was 12 of us, so you're going to get 2 plays. That's all I was going to get. And
please catch it.
so
If they throw it to you.
So they did. And so it was, I remember the play was I right plus Fox 2 double go. And I think it was Torrey Woodbury dropped back and threw me a go ball. And it was a veteran who was out there like a second or third year corner, and I ran by him and I caught it. And Herm Edwards was like right back there in the secondary because he's a secondary coach, and he kind of tapped me on the hip and he says, "Well, you're going to make it through the weekend."
Oh my gosh.
So it was early in that process and then so Wayne Corbett and Victor Green, I had a good practice, kind of grabbed me. Wayne's from Hofstra, I was from Maine, and Victor Green just was a really dope dude who just cared about people. And if he saw anything in you, he tried to encourage you.
Yeah.
So I had these 2 veterans who I had seen on TV because I didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I didn't go to a lot of NFL games. I think Mike Flynn, was from my hometown, went to Maine, left me a ticket for the Ravens-Patriots because we're both from Massachusetts. And then the next game I ever went to, I was playing in, right? So, wow. So it was interesting. It was interesting to the whole process, but I think it all stems from confidence and then having some veterans that you really look up to, giving you I didn't need a whole lot of positive feedback. Mm-hmm. I just needed some.
Just affirmation. When you were growing up, you played football your whole life. When you were growing up, did you know you were going to play professional football?
It's funny. It's a funny story. So I was probably 10, my son's age, and we used to come over for Christmas Eve would be at our house, with all the cousins. And I told all my cousins, I said, I'm going to play in the NFL, right? So my mother overhears this, and my grades were kind of A's and B's, but I would try to rock the boat once in a while. I'd be hovering around a C at the mid semester mark, and she would say you were gonna she would pull football from me if I didn't have A's and B's, all of them. So she comes down and she overheard me talking, and she went through. I'm 10. She goes through the percentages of 0.001%. Irish German, just telling me that just the hardcore Massachusetts style, this is the longest shot ever. So it's. I was like, I understand, and I'm going to do the work. And she said, well, then you need to. And I'm going to hold you accountable to doing the work so that you can be the best person and the best player you could be. And, of course, it was nice to fly her out to Invesco at the time for her to see me play in my first game, probably 11 or 12 years after that.
I get goosebumps. Just a picture, that whole story of being – it's like football players' dream to make it. How many football players – want to make it?
Ask my mom; she'll tell you. 0.001%, Philip.
Nobody does.
It's hard.
So bring that mic up just a little bit.
Oh, that's on me. This is the bane of our existence.
These guys are trying to give me scoliosis with this is supposed to be a performance center. They're making me lean over. Like Montgomery Burns from The Simpsons.
This is gonna. I can see the posture as we
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of their, like, they have a chiropractor and a massage therapist. Part of it is to injure you during the 2 hours and then send you over there and charge you $250 for the massage and the adjustment.
Okay, you don't have to tell all of our secrets today.
Well, you didn't. You should have done more research. This is Phil McGeoghan. Phil McGeoghan would have not said that.
Already, I don't deserve this many laughs. If I can laugh every day, God, that is the secret to health and wellness.
Well, then I should start charging.
You should start charging. Can I touch on the NBA stuff real quick?
Yeah,
Going
sure.
from your football is amazing. The NBA stuff,
Right.
Masters of Business. I was a business major in college, not an MBA. I always looked highly on. I thought that was probably one of the coolest things to get. I think there's so much knowledge going there. So, what do you have an idea of how you want to utilize it?
Yeah, so that's so the MBA, the impetus of the MBA program at CSU is it's sports management, right? So obviously we all have passions for sports. So they have one of the most acclaimed sports management MBA programs, and it works asynchronously. You can do it from your own. I have a finished basement, so I can just set my stand-up desk and there's just papers everywhere, and I'm dictating, and I have a whole process about writing my papers and doing the assignments and everything. So I've really embraced this program. There's wonderful professors there that have PhDs from all over the country. Some are lawyers, some are PhDs, but they all have tremendous resumes, and they're very accessible. They're very personable, but they hold you accountable. So it was funded by the Trust, which is the Retired Players Division of the National Football League Players Association, so NFLPA. So when Patrick Mahomes and all those guys negotiated the 2020 collective bargaining agreement, they negotiated more benefits for retired players, right? Because Patrick has a father who played, and some of their guys do. Patrick's retained. So all the important guys, that were involved in this, and Richard Sherman was one of the guys too. Went to Stanford,
Richard Sherman.
Put a high priority on education and what that can do for retired players to just having a habit of learning and continuing education. So on a use it or lose it for basically the next 10 years, they allocated the MBA programs all the way up to your PhD, whatever you could get into. So if you did well in college, academically, you're going to be able to get into an MBA program somewhere, and the Trust, which is funded by the NFLPA, will pay for you to get your MBA and all the way up through your PhD. So, awesome. Like I said, if we don't use it, and I say we, I'm talking about the Nick Ferguson, he runs a chapter down here, and all of the other guys that are in that Denver Broncos chapter and 31 other chapters in these NFL cities. If guys don't use it, then in the 2031 CBA, they're going to reallocate money to other places that might not necessarily be for retired players. So I felt like it was an obligation for me, if I was going to take a little step back from football and be more active with my family, to continue my education and to use this resource and do well in the program at 3.9 right now. So I really want to do well in this program, and it's important to me.
Yeah. What do you want to stay in? You want to stay in sports? Is it imperative for you? Are you open to right now?
I'm open. I'm I'm just. I'm at the point. Obviously, I'd love to coach. The receivers with the right offensive scheme and in the right environment and all of these things. But if those things aren't exactly aligned, then I do have a plan B that I can chip away at. And, having Anthony Becht, wanting me every year to coach the receivers in the UFL has been a good 5 months of football. And then I go back to doing, because it's a 5-month contract, and I go back to doing other pursuits and mostly just spending a lot of time with my wife and kids.
Yeah. I mean, that's the most important thing of all, is spending time with your family. We could talk business all day, but if you're not able to spend time with your family. So that's amazing you have that. Trip, did you want to jump in? Sorry, I didn't.
No, you're 100% fine. I really want to know what that transition was like, going from player to family man, coach, getting your MBA. What was that transition like? Because it's got to be a completely different flip of who you really were, right? or who you are. It's a complete flip.
Yeah, it's definitely something that takes a bit of adjusting to when you're used to your alarm going off at 6 in the morning, and you're like rushing out the door. You might stop at Starbucks, get a quad espresso like my man Dan Campbell, and
Quad.
seriously, and then I'll have another like venti with me, and you go in there and you leave at midnight, and you do this for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday's a little like I call it family night because you're out at 8 p.m. so the kids are still asleep. But then Friday's a half day. Saturday you could be traveling. Sunday you play a game, and that whole calendar starts again. So I think the adjustment of being present and just being available to your family and being able to have a say in some of the rules and regulations we have around our house, rather than like I'm almost like a stranger in my own home during the football season. Yeah. And when I come home on that Friday on the half day, I'm so tired that I'm like literally in the parking lot or, in the driveway, wherever we're meeting or whatever we're doing. And I'm like pumping myself up for like the last like 4 hours of today before I can just like go to sleep. I'm like, listen, they haven't seen you all week. Pull it together, Phil. Pull it together. So you got come in there like, hey, how you doing? You're like overdoing it. You're like, all right, Dad.
Something's wrong with Phil.
Yeah, he's melting down. But it definitely was an adjustment, and it can be difficult.
We did a podcast with a really cool gentleman, and he flew in. I think he flew in from. Oh God, my brain. Well, he came in. He spent the weekend with us, and he was a football player, high-level college football player, and he spoke
Adrian
Bybee, yep. And he spoke very, very strongly about transitioning as an athlete into the business world. I was a college baseball player. I tried out for the Cincinnati Reds, never went pro, but I had the mindset of an athlete.
Of course.
So I understand the transition. He was very adamant about the difficulty of the transition of being an athlete to, hey, now not that you're not a father as an athlete, but like you said, you're dedicating so much of your time. Do you agree with that? Did you feel like there was the transition, and maybe it's still going on?
It's always, yeah. I think it's something that's always, you're always being pulled in different directions. That's why some years you'll do something in the media that's more football related. Some years you're maybe pulled back and you'll just focus on other ventures. You might work in a sales capacity or do something where it's just a differentiated skill set than what you're used to working on. But I think at the end of the day, I call it the Sunday sads. So like when a lot of people are really enjoying Sundays, sometimes guys who are like transitioning through something that could potentially be difficult, it doesn't give them the same enjoyment that it would just a regular fan. So what has happened now is somebody who has loved this activity and all they ever wanted to do is be a part of it since they were Pop Warner days. Mm-hmm. They go play and they go coach or whatever. Now they're not involved. It's almost like the merry-go-round is just going around without you and you're a child, right? And you're just watching everybody have the time of their life, and it can be depressing when you miss it, when you really miss it. So you have to refocus yourself on, like, I just look at my daughter, and I realize I would not have taken her to school this week if I was coaching for blank team, whether it's college or whether it's in the NFL, so being mindful, being present, staying right where you are and blooming where you're planted is the key to transitioning and staying busy, continuing to move, to be active, limit the substances that you're putting into your body. You're omitting the negative things. We're only trying to fuel ourselves with the positive nutrients that we need to function properly. Because if you're drinking heavily and you're eating like garbage, then I like to swear. It's hard for me to not swear right down here. Yeah. Well, I don't want to swear up the whole thing. Maybe I'll drop a couple. But when you're eating like garbage, you're going to have a tendency to be more depressed, and you're going to have a tendency to. So there is a structure, to transitioning. That there are a lot of groups out there. I'm doing a lot of outreach stuff with people, even in my community in Erie, that have like purpose-filled, transitioning, and have a multitude of athletes, not like not just football. I'm talking about rugby, women's volleyball players, swimming. I mean, so it's a network of people that are trying to help people with these emotions, right? I just gave you one particular emotion, the Sunday Sads, but I mean, there's always things that come up that make you miss either playing, or coaching, no matter what you do.
It's powerful. So I used to play for a small pro league. I mean, it was nothing really. It was like pretty much a semi-pro league. But after the one season I actually played, I couldn't watch football for like a year. And one emotion I had it was hate. Really, was because like I feel like it was robbed away from me. It's like I got cut. Couldn't play anymore. Yeah. So when you were transitioning, maybe there's some tools maybe you wish you would have had in that transition.
Totally.
What kind of tools did you wish you had in that transition? What can people do that are listening to this podcast and you're like, hey, I'm on my back nine for playing, and I'm looking at that transition. What advice can you give for them?
So I did a couple things right and a couple things wrong. Right. So I was 2004. I hurt my neck with the Saints, and I was done. So I was living in Atlanta at the time, and I did the golden retriever rescue. So I'd take a puppy in. You kind of wait for somebody to come, and it's they adopt it and all that. So we did 13 dogs and that each season of 2004 when I was on injured reserve. That was a positive. I would say. The amount of alcohol that I consumed during that time was much greater than what I would have been consuming if I was in a structured organization like a team and has developed some pretty poor habits and some unhealthy relationships with alcohol during those transition periods. So those are the areas I probably wish that I would have been more mindful about, with the diet and alcohol and things of that nature. But you're 25 years old, you have an injury, a serious one. It was stenosis and a couple of other things in my C5, C6 that were problematic, and sometimes you just feel sorry for yourself, and sometimes you are just depressed. And when you do that, that's when you start to behave or act or not be able to regulate your emotions as well as you would like. And mixed with youth, mixed with you've always been invincible, and now you're completely defeated. So there's so much that goes into, that 2-year period of time where you are no longer the Superman that you, in your mind, that you think you are. Yes. So you're mourning the death of your former self that could do incredible things, right? I was a 7'1" high jumper and could do all these physical things, and then now I'm 25 pounds heavier than I should be. I'm really depressed. I'm eating bad foods. I'm not running or lifting really as much as I should be. So there's all those types of things that in 2004 and 2005 that I wish I knew now. I wish I knew back then, and I know now.
I mean, that's super important stuff too. I mean, that's even myself. I stopped going to the gym as much. I mean, I was like, what is the point?
What is the point?
What's the point here? Like,
right.
I had something that was keeping me going to the gym at a high level. And that was exciting every day, like going to hit the gym and like trying to hit new PRs. It's like, hey, listen, I'm trying to get faster. I need my 40 time to go down. I need my bench to go up. And then that next day, there's nothing.
Right.
There's absolutely no point. It's like, well, I guess I go to the gym and just kind of fart around, Yeah. And then next thing you know, that whole week you're just farting around the gym. And like you said, gain some weight, those kind of things. What kind of tools like support groups would have helped maybe?
Well, there's not like you scroll, like you picked up your phone, which had no functionality whatsoever. And then like somebody's telling you, hey, if you go and move, it's going to release endorphins. And you like scroll up and you're getting just bombarded with, hey, functional mushrooms, they help you with this, that, and the other thing. And okay, great. Athletic greens. Blah, 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 blah. So like we are inundated with information, even though we don't want it. People are, depending on who you follow and your algorithms and your socials, you're gonna get notified on LinkedIn of things that would help you because somebody's gonna post like a Tony Robbins or a John Gordon or a John Maxwell. It's gonna strike a chord in your brain because you're being exposed to this. So 20 years ago, we weren't exposed to information. You just didn't understand. It was like that was what it was. You bite down on a mouthpiece and just go back in there. Like there wasn't a lot of instruction that goes with that loss, that grief sense, that mourning of that person that you in your own mind have created.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, we all identify with the exact same thing.
Yeah.
As far as being an athlete, I think we might be on to something big here as far as addressing, I think teaching kids and mentoring kids. So I'm a baseball instructor at Legends here in town. So I have the privilege to work with kids on a regular basis. Yeah. So I think about this as I think we now have an opportunity to address some of these things that we didn't get the opportunity to. I blew my arm out my first game in college, spring season, crushed it in fall, and I remember blowing my arm out and just went behind the dugout, just bawling my eyes out.
Certainly.
I mean, it was a power. I still, like I said, I still get goosebumps to this day because how much I cared about it. So I think we might be onto something as far as developing tools for educating kids on why we play sports. It's so great to make the NFL. Not everyone's going to make the NFL.
Yeah.
Lance Vieta talked about raising men. Football coach at Littleton, and is that the answer? Then you think is that is just more education in the early days of these kids and transitioning them? Is there an answer? How do we? What's the next step to avoiding this?
Yeah,
this tough transition.
I think it's having a purpose, right? So what is your purpose when you wake up? So you transition. Like, so, okay, if football's gone, which you've been, I just asked my mother, 0.001% of the population has gotten the NFL. To have a vested pension as a player, that's a huge blessing. So if I would have been more aware, of those types of things when I was younger, then yeah, that would be helpful. But it's not it's just like a funeral. Like, let's talk about your grandmother passing away so that when she does pass away, it's not going to be as sad. That's not how it works. Hey, you're going to get hurt someday because you're an athlete, and are you going to cry less behind the dugout?
I think, yeah, I probably would have the same.
So adaptability and like consistent purpose. Like, so what is your purpose when you wake up in the morning? Like, I have an 8-page paper due for a very demanding professor that I just do before we leave to Estes Park here tomorrow. So I have a clear purpose about my current situation, and then my long-term is the weekend in Estes Park with the family, right? So like, I didn't watch the game last night. I might not watch the games that much on Sunday. I might put the red zone on in the background because it's not the most important thing for me anymore.
It's not your purpose.
Not right now.
Yeah.
Not right now. Now, if one of my great buddies who's a coordinator takes a head job, offers me to come as a receiver coach, well, then I have to sit down with the family like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is going to be a good situation for us. We know this person. We trust this person, and we're going to win. And that's kind of how you look at all of these year by year type mentalities when you start to have children.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's when you become selfless or have the opportunity to become selfless. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot, definitely. Trip.
It's true. Like we're working towards preventive care, right? Genetics, blood work, movement screenings, those kind of things. You can prepare yourself so much, but inevitably, it's just like a breakup. You never think someone's going to break up with you. You break up and then you're sad or what have you. But mentality is really important here. We talk about a lot about youth sports. We have a lot of youth coaches coming on. Where do you see football going? Because there's been a huge lack of participation in youth sports in general, but especially football itself.
So here's my opinion on this, and I think you have to look at it from a couple of different perspectives. The first thing is tackle football numbers have declined, but do you know that the flag football numbers have exponentially outgrown the decline in tackle football?
I did not know that. No.
Yeah, so there's there's probably 10x people doing flag football in Florida than there are doing tackle football.
Even women too.
Of course.
Leagues as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know one of the coaches of the Great Britain team. She worked for us with the Bills. We hired her for a minority coaching intern. Of course, but so So yeah, tackle football should be diminished. We should have less. My son is 10. He's an excellent player. They won a national championship in flag football, came in second and also third in the last 3 seasons. Got great players in their team. Only one player, he's 5'6" and he's 11, I think, plays tackle. So all these kids, I mean, Brian Balaga's son's on the team. I coach Brian in LA. So most of the guys, because we have data that comes from Harvard and Boston University that says kids shouldn't play tackle football till they're 14, at the earliest 12, because of just the repetitive nature of it. So we're getting that same information that we were hoping to get before. We're getting it now. So more people are holding their kids out, and they're doing flag where they're working on skill. Like I saw Antonio Brown's kid one weekend, and Charles Woodson the other weekend in Florida. Their kids are playing flag, because they understand that there's no need for a child to take unnecessary blows to the head because they've done it. We've all gotten hit in the head for quite some time. So if we can save our boys and girls from getting hit in the head at the age of 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, then we've decreased the probability of having long-term cognitive issues. If we can hold them off till they're 14, it's just what the data says.
Yeah, I love that answer. I got one more question about NFL. How do you like where the game is heading? First of all, 2 parts real quick. Number 1, Tom Brady is announcing now. You've heard him announcing.
Yeah.
You can see in his face he misses playing. You can see in every word, every time he speaks, he's like, gosh. You can just see he wants to be out on the field so bad. So that's number 1. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but
I competed, I played and coached against Tom probably like 10 or 11 times. We were in a division with Miami, Buffalo, so and the Chargers we played in the playoffs, then the Bucks, so this guy is the most tremendous competitor that you'll ever be, and one of the most respectful guys after the game. Tough loss at Miami, still come shake your hand, good game, coach. Just a classy dude. So he does miss football, but he's gonna get good. Really good at broadcasting, and he'll probably end up being like an Aikman in my mind, where Troy just kind of is up there and he's doing his thing, and so what Troy says is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you can't argue with it. Nobody has his perspective and the level of success.
No, and he works at it. And Joe Buck and Troy in the booth. I mean, come on. Give me a break.
What do you think about that's such a cool perspective. What do you think about, last question for me, where do you think about where the game's heading, the NFL game? Obviously, it's transition. You got new rules with the kickoff, which I feel is great, but it doesn't matter what I feel. What do you think about the rules, and do you see with your knowledge, do you predict any other future rules that may happen?
Yeah, I needed some insight. So Marwan Malouf used to work with me, the Dolphins special teams coordinator, special team coordinator, a bunch of places, the Vikings. So he had studied this, because I was like, tell me about it, tell me the pros, the cons. So I'm happy for it because it keeps a phase of the game in, because that would be something that I would have done. I would have been doing those jobs. I would have been the right tackle on a kickoff return team. So, and now it's more of a stock block. So guys like me would have been able to have a job on that special team, and then you usually need to have a job on like 2 or 3 other ones to be the 4 core special teamer, and to get a job and keep a job for special teams purposes, and those things are important, and that in your if I got to cover this kick, and if I do, this 5th receiver can't cover kicks, I'll probably get that job over him. So I think keeping the as much of the special teams components in as possible, it's important. Just for the integrity of the game. I don't want to take the kickoff. I don't want to take the kickoff out of it. So I like the rule a lot, to be honest with you. And the direction of the game has been very clear to me. I hadn't even coached in the NFL, and an executive from the NFL came to training camp at Dodgertown when I was with the University of South Florida. So Skip Holtz was the head coach. He says, we're going to have an NFL meeting. So this executive was nicely dressed, and you know who he was if I said his name, but it's not Roger. So he gets up in front of the room, writes on the grease board. He says, 25B 2027. Then, does anyone knows this? Anyone knows this? No one knows. All right. So he said, well, I'm going to show you a little video. So he shows a video of player conduct policy and this and that, and the guys in college doing this and doing that. Then he pulls up some Twitters from some. We had Jason Pierre-Paul like 2 years before. We had some draft picks coming out, right? So he pulls up some of the current guys that were on that roster and started going through their Twitter and showing how like bad posts. And he said, listen, I'm going to tell you what this means. Is with $25 billion by year 2027. That's our biggest objective for our revenues. We want $25 billion by 2027. So if you want to put your name on a small fraction of this money, then if you act accordance to this player conduct policy that I just put up there, you'll have no problems. If you want to continue down the road of these tweets and all this nonsense that you're doing, you're going to preclude yourself from being part of this $25 billion. And they're very close to that projection right now. So when you know, and then I went to the Dolphins the following year, and you understand, I've signed that player conduct and coach conduct policy, you understand that taking the head hits out of the game was a monetary decision, to try to mitigate some of the concussion settlement costs that and the class action stuff that's going to happen if they didn't do that. So do you think a class action lawsuit is going to help them reach $25 billion in 2 years? No. So many of these changes in the game, like when you write a policy on something, the policy is just an expression of what your organization stands for. So they wanted to be the number one dominant, most successful sports league in North America. They had a very clear vision on how they're going to do it. They had the game cleaned up a considerable amount from a disciplinary standpoint. They were harder on things than they have been in 20 years ago. More difficult policies for appeals. It all ends up back at Roger's desk anyways, even after you appeal it. So, which is fine. But if you understand that this vision is to create revenue in the stratosphere of $25 billion. So almost every single one of these moves that they've done is to improve and enhance the game from a competition standpoint and to continue to move the game forward and from a revenue standpoint.
Love that. Love that answer. That was perfect.
That's not 100% true. Sorry, I gotta go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I gotta. Well, I know we're kind of winding down here. Got a quick question about not transitioning, but what you're doing right now with this. What you want to do with this MBA, right? So you have a ton of sports experience, coaching, playing. I know Brett touched on if you want to be involved with sports, other options down the road as well. What would be your dream with this MBA?
Well, I think I'd like to probably get my PhD and then teach a MBA level course in coaching and leadership, where because that's a course that's offered. So I think those types of avenues get kind of opened when you are able to continue to work diligently at a degree. With an MBA, I could be in my last maybe 5 or 10 working years somewhere down in Sarasota, an athletic director at a nice high school. My son is down in Florida. So I think that I've never heard somebody say, hey, this guy's too educated. But I have heard, hey, I only wish if you had an MBA, or this really looking for somebody with a PhD for this particular program. So I just feel very blessed that I'm able to learn, and retain information, because I was very nervous about that. I took a lot of hits and been a bunch of concussions, and neurologically had some decline. So I was very concerned if I could even keep up with the work, even though after being admitted, because they were admitting me off of grades that were from 1999 and 2000.
You take that first test, you're like, please.
Totally. But I treat it like a game because I'm so competitive.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, what is wrong? I'm like, because I can't, I'll get embarrassed. So I think the fear of failure sometimes does push you.
You have a unique experience. I'm almost elated for you. I believe in you. Just after talking to you, I'm like, you're gonna get your PhD. But I'm excited for the kids because of what you've gone through, and to be able to hear it right from you, who's done it before. There's nobody who could connect better. So the opportunities are just endless, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Literally, you guys can't tell, but I've been smiling this whole time. I have a tremendous amount of respect for athletes, and then I have a whole nother respect for football players. I wanted to play football. God chose not to bless me with that.
Or he saved you.
Or he saved. Amen. He did save me. This has been one of my favorite podcasts. I just want to say thanks again for taking the time out, and I hope we get a chance to bring you on again.
Of course,
after
anytime.
You get PhD. Final words?
Yeah, man. I've like you. I've been smiling this whole podcast. It's people don't see the backside of athletes' lives, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of TV glamour and like you said, social media and clout and all this other stuff. And athletes are people, and there's a whole nother layer that people don't understand about like you said, the Monday through Friday, the pain you got going through, the time you're spending on film and practice and in installs and run-throughs. And it's a grueling grind being an athlete. From sun up to sundown, you're putting your body on the line. You're always exhausted. So it's just it's a great insight, and thank you for coming on and teaching our viewers that it's not all sunshines and rainbows.
It's not. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and I think if you ever want to see me really get the Jamaican Irish up, is if I see the dehumanization of athletes, right? Like if people make comments or this and that, like around me, that are just there's some that are like on the border. I'm talking about the ones that are just like insensitive, right, to the process. So then I'll get into like my long-winded soliloquy on like why that's difficult and why I always like feel like I'm the advocate for even baseball, any other sport. Like I'm like, could you hit a major league fastball or a slider at 89? You come in 12-6 breaking ball? No, So I just have so much respect for even all performers, music, artists, anybody who has that gift that people are going to be critical of or critique, chef, whoever it could be, like, Michelin, trying to get a Michelin star, all these things that happen, they're trying their hardest to accomplish that. That's where I just need to humanize the effort and be honest with myself that, these people are working extremely hard. And, a lot of people are envious of the talent because they can't do that or the size, and then they're not really happy with their own selves and their own lives, and that's when they kind of like lash out at the athlete or sometimes we deserve criticism, coaches and players. I understand that. That's not what I'm talking about. When it's coming from a darker place of envy or you're unhappy with your own circumstances. So then you dehumanize athletes, which for me is like a huge trigger.
This is going to be a very tough podcast to surpass here, but we promised you guys we have a lot of more great guests coming to you. Thanks so much to you. Thanks, Trip, for hosting always.
Woo!
And we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Health or High Water. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys, and thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.